Alright, greetings my friends. Thanks for stopping by. It's maintenance time. So what I'm doing today is I'm checking the fluids, checking the air filter. I also had a squeaky belt. I want to tell you a good trick for that. Dielectric grease. Put it on a squeaky belt and your troubles are gone. Yeah, I saw a mechanic on YouTube that's got some nice tips, and that was one of his tricks, and I did it, and sure enough, solved the problem. So today we checked the air filter, which is here. Just unclip it, check it. I knew it was going to be good because I just replaced this about 3,000 miles ago. I knew that was going to be okay. Check the level of the brake and power steering fluid. And one thing I hadn't checked in a while was the transmission fluid. Now on the Chevy Express or GMC Savannah, we got the 4.8 liter engine with automatic transmission. It is 6-speed transmission. So you'll want to crank your engine, get it hot, put it in park, and then check the fluid through this dipstick here. That one's your oil fill, your oil check, and there's your oil fill. Talk about oil. I used to use semi-synthetic Valvoline, but they don't make it anymore. So my last oil change, I went to full synthetic, and this one has a readout on the odometer. It tells you when to change your oil. And I'm waiting to see if it's going to be a longer duration with the synthetic than with the semi-synthetic. I don't know yet. Right now it's still showing me I've got about 50% oil life left. And I'm thinking I'm going to end up changing it about every 7,000 with the synthetic oil. And I was doing 5,000 with a semi-synthetic. And it's really not much more expensive than the semi was. So I think in the long run, I was sad when they first told me they don't make it anymore. But now I think it'll be for the best. Full synthetic all the time in the Matty Wagon. Only the best for the Matty Wagon. Alright, moving right along here. Other than the dust, you know where that came from? Last year's trip to Colorado. That's where this dust came from. You know how dusty it is out there on those forest roads? That's where that came from. But let's move on over here to the battery. I just happened to notice about a month ago, the date code on this battery is March 13, 2017. You know what that means? On March 13, 2020, this battery dies. Funny story, I don't know if you know this, but the scientists have the chemistry in these batteries down so close. If it says 5-year battery, you won't get 5 year in one day out of it. So I'm going to replace this within the next few months. Go ahead and do it because I know it's going to die in March anyway. And right now we are, let's see, into August, let's just say September. So I will be replacing this before year's end. So this is the original battery that came with the van. Van is a 2017. You can see here GM Detroit battery, AC Delco, original equipment. Never had a problem with it. I did add these extenders here for the terminals because I used to have that that cable going from the positive here on the battery and the negative here on the battery through a fuse block, A&L fuse, that I would run back to my house batteries, and it would charge the house batteries. The alternator charges this would charge the house batteries. I didn't use that much because it's not really a good way to do it, and it's a strain on the alternator to do it that way. So I did away with it. When I upgraded my new solar system, I just decided to do away with that and give the alternator a break. I'm glad looking back that I barely ever used that feature because it just makes me feel better knowing that the alternator wasn't strained, and it's possible to really mess up your alternator if you do that too much. Now, in a pinch, if you wanted to clip on some jumper cables to this, and then clip the other end of the jumper cables onto your house batteries, you could charge your house batteries that way while you're driving, just by clipping on jumper cables. Would I recommend doing it a lot? No, of course not. But in a pinch, yeah, sure, knock yourself out. Yeah, so this is one of the best engines ever made for reliability. 4.8 liter V8, small V8. We have used these vans in the company that I worked for, let's see, going back to 2004 we started using them. Haven't changed these engines much. I think they changed them a little bit in 2006 maybe. But tried and true engines. Every van we ever had for the company, they all went 300,000 miles before we traded them in or sold them at auction, whatever we did with them. Never had a problem. We did replace one transmission around 200,000, but the others, they were original. They were the same transmissions at 300,000. But we did have that one, I think it was 220,000. It went out on the technician called in one day. He couldn't finish his route because his tranny died. And that was out of many vans, just the one. So that's why I went with this van. It's just tried and true. And nothing special about it. It just lasts. And that's what's important to me. Look here what's happened this summer. My bumper's bleached out. I was using those Armor All wipes. That's just junk. You know, get something better than I did. Look how I've let that bleach out. That's a shame. I'm going to have to get some higher quality Meguiar's or something like that to try to bring that luster back. But yeah, it's just pretty gray now when it used to be black. Another thing I noticed, this little trim piece under here, that black little plastic piece that goes under the chrome bumper. Let's see if you can see this. Right here. It was loose. It was a clip that was out, and I've noticed it for a long time, and I finally got under there and fixed that clip. And now it's on there nice and tight. I'm surprised it didn't fall off in the wind. And I crawled up under here a little while ago and dabbed a little dielectric grease on the belt. This van has two belts. You know, you got the one giant serpentine belt that goes around everything except the AC compressor. And over here you got a little bitty belt. Little bitty. Little bitty belt that goes around from the crankshaft over to the AC compressor. It was the one that was chirping. Typically it would just chirp when it was cold and wet. Back in the winter I noticed it, and I didn't do anything about it. I just left it alone. After 5 minutes it quit chirping, you know. In the summer it didn't make any noise, but the other morning it must have been on the cool side and it was damp. Cranked the van and it got a little chirp. And it stopped after 5 minutes, and I thought, you know, I'm going to go ahead and try that little trick with the dielectric grease. And it knocked it out. No problem. So, upcoming maintenance. Back to the transmission fluid. It is super clean. This van has 42,000 miles on it. And this transmission fluid looks like you just poured it out of the bottle. It's so clean and so red and just see-through. So there comes the old time argument about, do you flush a transmission, do you not? And I think I'm gonna side with Scotty. Everybody knows Scotty Kilmer. He says, you know, just change the oil, drain out, don't flush it, just drain out, you know, your pint or your quart or whatever it is, and measure what you drain out and then replace it with fresh, and do that about every 60,000. And I think he's right on that, because if you flush it, you're removing too much buildup, and sometimes that old fluid is actually keeping your transmission from slipping, you know. So I see where he's coming from on that, and I tend to agree. So at about 60,000 miles, I'll drop the automatic transmission filter, the pan, whatever comes out of it, I'll measure it, put the new filter in, button it back up, and then I'll replace the ounces of whatever I drained out. And I think that's the way to go with this situation. All right, we are close to 10 minutes. Thank you for your time. Let's give you a parting shot. Mega solar panels looking great up top. Man, I'm loving that setup. Loving it. All right, guys, take care. Be well. Smash that bell.